my relationship development and just my development as a person. I was severely overweight. I was very, very large during that time when most people go through that kind of blossoming and awakening. And for me, my attention was in other places. And I think it was my hormonal development was probably messed up in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of kind of backtracking and working on myself that I've been doing the past couple of years, just even in terms of learning about who I am as a person. So if I'm going to give that to someone else, I can know what that means. Like it's a long road.
It's interesting that you say that, because that's one of the things that I've said is that fat me and thinner me we're two different people. Like I was pretty, I had a pretty good handle on who fat me was because I lived with him for 40 plus years. Mm-hmm. Thin me's something. He's a different guy. I mean, he's a little more, he's a little more brash. Like I find myself getting, being quicker to, I don't want to call it anger, but I'm much quicker to speak my mind. I'm much quicker to be aggressive, and I find myself, so a lot of times something will happen and I'll handle it in a way that I would not have handled it at 400 pounds. And I'll have to sit back and go, wait, what was happening there? I came home one day and I told my wife, I said, I think I need to calm down or something. She said, why? She goes, well, my boss told me something that it was a rule change at work. And the rule change was going to slow me down and offer me no benefit. And I said, I just went off on him. I was yelling, and he was, thankfully he was, he handled me the way that I probably needed to be handled. And, but when I got home, I was like, I can't believe, I can't believe that I said that. I think maybe it's testosterone is going up. Maybe it's just being comfortable in my own skin for one. I don't know what it was, but there are changes. There are definitely changes.
Well, it's funny you talk about that, because it's one of those things, like for years, even when people would talk to me about my weight and my size and they would say, are you an emotional eater? Like I always said I wasn't. Like that was never the banner I walked under. I'm like, no, I just like to eat. I don't eat because of my emotions. And what I really realized, like being very conscious, is because I lost a ton of weight. Like I went from 540 to 210 pounds in 2012, 2013. It's funny because you talk about two different people. Like I lost all of that weight, but I regained all of that weight within 6 months. Like I was May of 2013, I was 210. October of 2013, I was 480 pounds. Like, because I did no work on it at all looking at who I was as a person.
Right.
So I focused exclusively on the scale and on the numbers and focusing on that. And so I got to 210 pounds and I had no idea who I was. Like I was completely lost. And the only thing that I knew in terms of comforting and adapting and responding to the world was food. So I went right back into it and I allowed it to take me over again. And this time around, like my goal was to really be conscious of like who I am and my mindset and all of those pieces. And one of the things I've really realized now is I was an emotional eater. It's just that I ate constantly. So I numbed my emotions constantly. So now, happy, sad, good, bad, everything, I'm feeling that, like you said, ratchet it up. It's almost like if I can watch something on the internet, I can watch something on YouTube and start to feel myself welling up with tears, or I can have someone give me news that I don't want to hear. And I get angry and I get really angry and I get irrationally angry. And it's one of those things that like now I work on being conscious of it, because I have felt those emotions grow so strong. And I think it's because my coping mechanism.
For me, I apologize about that.
That's okay.
The whole thing crashed.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you were saying, yep. back up just a little bit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure. So it just this idea that like I avoided the label of emotional eater for many years because it wasn't something I was conscious of, and trying to be more conscious of my mindset as I've been losing weight and getting to where I am now, I've realized that I just numbed myself constantly with food, that it was something that was this constant stream of, instead of reacting to the world, I fed myself. And so now I have to react to the world, and I don't have that coping mechanism anymore. And I have to work on building healthier ones, because I can get really sad and really happy and really angry. And it's kind of amazing to feel the emotions really for the first time, but it's also can be scary. And it can be one of those moments where you have, like you were saying, like you have that moment where you take yourself back and you're like, okay, yeah, that is not the reaction that the situation warranted. Like maybe I need to take a deep breath and work on that.
And there's a little bit of body dysphoria in that as well. Cause I remember I would pass by a mirror or something, looked at myself and just think, man, I don't even recognize that person. I remember many times thinking that my head was giant because I was used to seeing it in relation to my body. As the body got smaller, my head didn't change. I used to think, look at it and just think that head does not go with that body. It doesn't seem to belong with that, and I've said like a stick figure, but I was still big. By any measure, I was still a fat guy, but I just looked so much smaller and still, had this giant head on my shoulders. And it was odd. It was really weird.
Oh yeah. And I actually had an experience where last year I went to KetoCon, and there was an event the night before it started thrown by, I think it was Redmond Real Salt, through like a kind of a social event for everyone. And they sent us the professional photos, a few days later. And I was talking to one of my friends, and I'm like, it sucks that I'm not in any of these pictures. And he's like, what are you talking about? You're in like 5 or 6 of the pictures. And I'm like,
that's funny.
I've looked through them twice. And what I realized was a lot of those pictures are from the side and from, there's a couple forward, but from the back. And I just didn't recognize it was me as the, that actual person. Like I had, like you were saying, that disconnect, that, kind of that dysphoria, like adjusting that mental side of things is a real challenge.